So this is the 10th and final video of the Real Return 101 series. So let's do a recap of what we've talked about. The first video was all about real return versus nominal return. What that means, how to think about your purchasing power rather than just the numbers on your statement. Next, we talked about the two opposing problems that every single investor has. Those problems are, number one, especially when approaching retirement age, you have to protect against a big downside move when you're getting close to needing to withdraw your money. But on the flip side, you also have to worry about inflation and dollar debasement and figuring out how to keep your piece of the pie at least the same or growing, else you're going backwards. Next, we talked about your investment framework, where you kind of think about your portfolio in terms of buckets of different assets to do different jobs. One is to give you a liquidity buffer. So you've got cash ready to withdraw and you can withstand a market downturn. But then also we talked about needing growth in your portfolio and not only relying on your allocation of equities versus fixed income to manage risk. Then the big picture of that framework is using a portion of your portfolio to hedge against a downside loss. We talked about put options to do that. And then we also talked about other option strategies such as covered calls to generate income to help pay for that put protection. We talked about Bitcoin and new technology and predominantly how to think about owning investments that are going to do well when the dollar continues to lose value and inflation continues to grow and be a problem. And then in our last video, we talked about basically how to track your overall progress in your portfolio. And we talked about working with a financial advisor and the different fee models. And specifically, we talked about the net worth based fee model rather than the AUM model. So in this video, I want to give you a bit of an idea of what I do for my clients and sort of how I work with clients, and really just talk about financial advisors in general. I follow quite a few online forums. A lot of those are independent investors who have decided not to work with a financial advisor. And most of the time, the biggest objection is cost. And the cost is a drag against the portfolio. And a lot of do-it-yourself investors feel like they have enough knowledge to manage their own investments and they don't need to pay a financial advisor. A good financial advisor should really help you do a couple things. Number one, they should help you with financial planning and basically help you stay organized and understand where you are and where you're trying to go. Number two, they also offer a very objective response when things happen in the market. When it's your money and you're emotionally attached to it, when something happens, your first instinct is usually to sell everything, go to cash, be very, very, very conservative. A lot of times that is the exact wrong thing to do. And a financial advisor can really help with that because they can be objective. But as we've talked about, most financial advisors are trained with economic models where risk management is basically how much to allocate to fixed income versus equities. And if you're young, that equity percentage is very high and the fixed income is low. And as you age and get closer to retirement and then enter retirement, the fixed income becomes a much larger percentage of your total portfolio. As we've talked about, the problem with that is inflation is a much larger problem than the government admits. If you believe that inflation is 2 to 2.5 to 3%, just look backwards for 15 to 20 years at what the dollar bought then versus now. And I've given some of those examples in this video series. The M2 money supply has grown. I believe going forward the next decade, it's going to get a lot worse. There's not really a choice that the government has other than continue to print money and grow the money supply. So this is a big problem that has to be addressed in your investing portfolio. So one of the obvious solutions that financial advisors offer to clients are structured products. And most of the time, those structured products are some sort of annuity. I've seen several of these in the last month. And those annuities sometimes are variable annuities, which means they hold the mutual fund or ETF type investments within the structure. Sometimes the annuities are actually fixed annuities, which are much more like bonds or CDs, but they're linked to the market. And what those products are trying to do is give you some sort of protection against a big downside move, but then also promise you a certain amount of income based on your investment balance. The downside, as we've talked about, to those products is you basically lose all flexibility. You're giving your money to the insurance company and then they're promising you an income stream. If you change your mind, you really don't have a lot of options. And typically you can do a much better job doing it on your own individually if you have the know-how and you know how to do it. They're basically just using options to hedge it on the downside and they're generating income on the upside. That's what we've talked about in this video series. That's pretty straightforward to do. Just have to have the expertise to know how to manage it. So I work with really 3 different categories of clients. Number 1 is young professionals. Number 2 is pre-retirees. And number 3 are retirees. So young professionals are people who are in their earning years. They're saving aggressively. They're contributing to their 401k plans. And they're really just trying to be successful. Sometimes it might be a business owner or a W-2 employee, teachers, all kinds of people who are working hard, saving, and want some help thinking about their retirement. So what I do with these folks, typically financial advisors have an asset minimum. And a lot of times people that are younger don't meet those minimums. These people, younger investors, are sometimes forced into advisors that are more commission based, or they just don't have the knowledge or wherewithal because they don't work with people with asset levels that low. I charge based on net worth and I have a minimum annual fee, but I love working with young people because basically it's almost more like a fee only or a fee based mentality until you get your assets to a certain level. But it's still very valuable to sit down with a young person, especially a young business owner, help them make sure everything is on track and set up and the proper accounts are being funded, help with taxes, help with children's education. There are all kinds of planning opportunities that young, hardworking professionals need help with. And I love working with that type of client. The second type of client, and really the ones who need the most intensive help, I believe, are pre-retirees. This is the time where if you make a big mistake, it can really cost you for the rest of your life. As we've talked about, the 2 major things with a pre-retiree is you have to protect against the downside, and you also have to have growth in your portfolio. You can't just lock down and be too conservative. These type people need a lot of planning. They've got Social Security, Medicare to think about, lots of issues as you get close to ending your work and transitioning into living off your investments. And I love working with that type of client as well. And then the third type of client are people who are already retired. These folks usually have RMDs to manage. They have income that they're trying to generate from their portfolio. And sometimes they have needs of passing their wealth on to the next generation. Lots of planning opportunities there. I use a software called Right Capital. It's a great financial planning software. It helps to calculate the net worth, which I need to base my billing on. But also it's a very robust platform that generates very sophisticated financial planning. Now, I'm a big believer in keeping things as simple as possible. And what I try to do with every client, no matter which category, is I do a summary, basically an executive summary, and it's called a 1-page financial plan. And basically it's got all your information on 1 page to kind of let you know where you are, your net worth, how your net worth is trending over the last 3 to 5 years. We want to make sure that it's growing, where your money is as far as what type of accounts, and really kind of what your main goals are and how we're doing in achieving those goals. So my client onboarding process is pretty straightforward. The first thing is just an introductory call. And this call is really just to have a chat, learn a little bit about my potential client, figure out what their goals and aspirations are, and really just determine if we feel comfortable getting to know each other and if it's a potential fit. If we decide to move forward after that initial call, then we start talking a little bit more about finances in detail and decide if we want to start working together. I am not a high pressure sales guy. I'm not a high volume person. I keep my business very tight and small on purpose. I want a few clients with very deep relationships. Like I said, I want to be a consigliere or a CFO type where I can help very holistically with anything and everything money related in finance. I run a very lean business. I don't have a brick and mortar office. I work from my home. I do 95% of my meetings online via Zoom, and that helps me keep fees very low. I provide a very high level of service to all my clients. So hopefully you've gotten something out of this series of videos. If you decide that your investment philosophy matches with mine and what I have shared makes sense, I encourage you to reach out. You can find my contact links in my description on my YouTube channel. A quick 30-minute introductory call is the first step. So if you think I would be a good fit to help you with your finances and growing your assets and focusing on real return, please don't hesitate to reach out. I look forward to talking with you soon.